Let's talk about some rookie mistakes that car drivers make when driving or when working on their car. And I must confess, I've been guilty of a few of these over the years. And some of them are just easy mistakes that are actually quite easy to repeat. Let me know in the comments if you've done any of these. And if I've missed any out, again, please let me know in the comments what these are. We'll start with a few confessions from my car owning history, and then we'll move on to the more general ones that I see quite commonly, along with a few real facepalm moments. I was driving around noticing that my brakes were squealing. That's usually a sign that the pads are worn down. I did check. I just looked through the wheel at the outside of the brake pad and saw that there was still a decent amount of brake pad left on it. But the squeal just got worse and worse and worse. Eventually, I took it into a garage. They took the wheel off and they showed me that the inner pad had worn completely through. I kind of assumed that they would wear at the same rates. And because it had worn right through, I now had to replace much more of the brake system, including the disc and the caliper and the brake pad. The damage had actually got that bad. When you start servicing the car yourself, there's quite a few simple mistakes that's quite easy to make, and hopefully by flagging them up here, we'll avoid those mistakes. Now, the one that caught me out was cross-threading the spark plug. You get the spark plug, you screw it in, but you don't screw it in correctly. You notice it's much tighter than it should be, and you force it in. Effectively, you've cut a new screw thread into the hole that the spark plug goes into, effectively damaging the block. It was relatively easy to fix with a helicoil. I just cut a new thread, but that could have been a very, very expensive mistake. And it was quite a simple one to make. And actually not fitting the spark plug correctly caught me out again another time when a spark plug just popped out and the engine was running on 3 cylinders. The bang noise it made as it just shot out scared the life out of me. I wondered what was going on. It did do a little bit of damage as the spark plug flew out at high velocity, and I never did find that spark plug. Then also, when you're servicing the car, you've drained the oil out, you start to pour in the fresh oil, and you suddenly realize you've not replaced the sump plug. And what happens is all the new oil goes straight through, typically into the container that is full of the old engine oil, and you've pretty much just wasted all of that oil that you've just poured into the car. It's always worth having a checklist, with the checklist being replace the sump and sump washer before refilling with oil, and that'll just go some way to making sure we don't make those silly mistakes. Now, moving on to more general rookie mistakes that people are doing all the time, one of them is ignoring warning lights. Most people have the impression that if you ignore something, it'll go away, it'll fix itself, and in 99% of cases that is not true. It gets worse and you end up with a bigger bill. So don't ignore warning lights. If you've got a warning light flashing up on the dashboard, investigate the cause of that. Get your OBD2 diagnostic tool out, download the error codes and see what is going on inside the engine. There are different levels of warning light, obviously. Some are critical and some are advisory. Learn to distinguish the two different sets. And if there's a light on your dashboard that you're not familiar with, check it out in the manual. Just make sure it is not something serious. Something we've probably all done, and I've certainly seen done, and this is driving home or limping home when the car has a serious problem. Maybe it's been overheating, there's a loss of coolant, the oil pressure light has come on, there are knocking noises, severe vibration, the buzzing noise you get from a flat tyre are all things that drivers ignore. They feel that they can get home safely and then sort it out. Again, that usually means the problem has got much worse. Instead of topping up a fluid, we're often replacing an engine or major components. Instead of just putting some air in the tyre, for example, we may be replacing the rim because it's become damaged because we've been driving on a completely flat tyre. Another problem that people make is overfilling with engine oil. Do check the capacity of your engine for oil and try to get as close to that as you can. It's easier to put more oil in than take oil out, but I have a friend, he'll remain nameless, he's probably watching this channel as well, so if he's feeling brave we might hear from him in the comment section, but he decided to fill the engine up with oil and literally filled it right up with oil. He kept buying oil and pouring it in until he could see the oil through the top of the oil filler cap. Now, that is a bit of a rookie mistake, just putting far too much oil in. I don't know how many bottles of oil it would have taken to fill this engine. And then compounding that mistake, started it. He started the engine to see if it had done any damage. And of course, that was the critically bad thing to do. The engine did not work very well with that much oil in, and it led to very costly repairs. I think the lesson there is, if we realize we've made a mistake, don't compound it by starting the engine or continuing to drive. Rectify it straight away. Running with low oil is actually quite damaging to an engine. The damage is cumulative and builds up. The wear and tear accelerates as the engine oil level drops. Engine oil pressure drops. The lubrication is just not there, and the engine starts to run hotter. It produces more friction, and that causes additional stress and wear and tear on all of the components. Just checking the engine oil level frequently and topping it up will go a long way to avoiding that problem. And certainly never ignore the oil light on the dashboard, as we've already mentioned. Revving hard on a cold engine before the engine has warmed up, before the oil has warmed up, just getting in and driving it really, really hard and aggressively. In modern cars, you've got some level of protection against stupid, but it is still possible to wreck older car engines by revving them particularly hard when they're cold. And the more often we do this, the greater the risk of increased wear and tear will be. Riding the clutch, abusing transmissions. Think very carefully about the clutch and the transmission, how it works. Not shifting harshly, not moving from forward to reverse very quickly with the car still moving. Not using the clutch and the gearbox to actually hold the car on a hill, or even to decelerate dramatically by crashing into a much lower gear. There's a reason that's called the money shift. Another thing falling under the topic of ignoring it is sounds and smells. If we notice an unusual sound or an unusual smell, investigate it. Burning smells, ticking noises, knocking noises, rattling noises should all be investigated and can often be a sign of serious impending problems. We've mentioned checking the engine oil, which is a bit of a no-brainer. We should all be doing that regularly. How often do you check your oil? But what about the other fluids? The brake fluid, the coolant levels, and even the power steering and transmission fluid? Do we check that they are still in the correct spec and they haven't degraded? Ignoring those simple checks can lead to much more costly problems. Another rookie mistake is using the wrong oil or the wrong fluid, and I see so much really bad AI generated advice in YouTube videos. Channels are being set up every day purporting to give sound mechanical knowledge and mechanical advice, and frankly some of the advice is very, very damaging to our car, such as switching the SAE rating of oil, going to a thicker oil to protect our engine. In most cases, the manufacturer will already recommend the ideal SAE, the viscosity rating, and they'll also have a recommended additive pack, with some additives being particularly harmful to engines, and other engines and other materials used in the engines requiring very specific components in that additive package to ensure the engine's long-term reliability. Putting the incorrect grade of oil or the incorrect oil additive package will cause problems further down the line. The same is also true of coolants. A lot of coolants are not compatible with each other. You have to fill up with a specific type, and if you fail to do so, it can reduce the ability of the coolant to protect the engine from corrosion. It can cause sludge to build up. It can reduce the thermal efficiency of the coolant, just putting the wrong type in. Generally then, always top up with what was used to fill the car. If you're unsure, make sure you're using something that has wide compatibility, and at the earliest convenience, get the coolant changed to the correct specification. Make sure that is fresh, of the correct spec, and it's giving the engine the protection that it actually needs. Adding cheap parts. There is a worldwide supply of parts now. We can get parts shipped from across the world, and often manufacturing tolerances and standards are much lower in some of these other regions of the world. If you're buying a component, for example, in the UK, and it costs 500, but you can get a cheap one imported for a couple of hundred, you are going to be paying a price in the future when that part prematurely fails. The old adage is buy cheap, buy twice. Nearly always when we cut corners with cheap, low quality parts that we've used on a car, they will fail and they will cause other problems. At the very best, we'll have to do the job again. At the very worst, it'll have a knock-on effect and maybe take out a few other components. Let me know in the comments if there's any things I've missed off this video, any rookie mistakes that maybe caught you out over the years, and that just flags it up for all of our other readers so we can be a better informed car owning community. I really do appreciate all your comments, all of the likes. Please boot that like button, that really does help us to get out there. If you've not subscribed to the channel, and a lot of you haven't, please do so. That gives a signal to the algorithm to recommend us to more people. And I've lined up this video and this playlist that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in these next videos.